So, if we need to, on the other chair. And gentlemen, I hope this is okay, but I trust our proceedings, the dignity of them won't be diminished. If I take off my coat, even though I'm wearing a purple shirt that my wife gave me, I tend to get fairly warm, and I'd rather not be up here, sweat all over the microphone for whoever's coming up after me. So, thank you. Okay. Where we are in Ohio. Well, first off, the theme, which is kind of hard to see this year, is invest. Our Grand Master is a gentleman named Jess Ann Rains, and he believes quite strongly in the idea of education. And part of what we've been doing is redefining our definition of what Masonic education is. Because by and large, what we're seeing in our lodges is we still see people getting up and reading the first 2 pages of an MSA bulletin that they got in the mail on their way to the lodge. And we need to redefine what we think of education. We're trying to redefine what our educational officer role is. We have lodge education officers, district education officers, and our Grand Lodge Committee. And we're trying to redefine sort of what education looks like. We have what we call the Traveling Masonic Education Roadshow, which is an initiative I'll talk about. It's something we actually call the Royal Schofield Society. So, okay. Masonic education, as we are looking at it, is the process by which we help brothers learn Masonic values and put them into action in their daily lives. What we are consistently seeing when we talk to new brethren, when we talk to existing brethren, people join Masonry looking to connect. That's what they're looking to connect to. Their community, their personal history, their community, their higher power. And so they look to connect, they stay when those connections are made. Masonic education is the best way to forge and maintain strong connections. That has to be our priority, is forging and maintaining those particular connections. What we're doing with our education officers is the best way to describe it is this. Years ago, I sat down with our current Grand Master, and I said, well, okay, you're Grand Master, what do you want us to do for education? He said, you're asking the wrong question. I should be asking, what do you guys want to do? What is important? What is individualized to those lodges, those districts? What should Grand Lodge be doing to help you do what it is that is important to you? So, for the lodge education officer, what we're trying to do is give a lot more power back to the lodges. We're also finding that how education officers are doing their jobs is very different. But we're trying to give them very specific missions. Lodge education officer, first thing, candidate integration. Bring the guy into lodge, forge those connections. Second duty, help brethren apply the lesson of Masonry. Believe it or not, learning how to sharpen a knife or cook pancakes can be just as educational as a lecture on Preston, which was awesome, by the way. Thank you. Maximize the lodge experience. Okay? Every lodge is different. Every lodge is a different and unique lodge experience. Lodge education officers should help the master and officers maximize the experience, whether it's a chamber of reflection, whether it's the dinner, whether it's ritual, maximize that experience. District education officers aid and assist lodge program development. We gave them almost the role of a fraternal consultant. We gave them an assessment tool to work with and talk to the lodges so that the lodges could identify their values. What is it that we value? And it's funny when you talk to lodges, how many of them say, we value ritual. Like, really, do you? Do you really value ritual? What is it important to you? Where is it important that you spend your time? Because, they can tell us they value ritual, but they may not be able to have anybody who actually do a lecture. They don't practice it. What do they really value? Connection with the community. Maybe they really value something else. D knows what to help them identify their values and identify where they're going to spend their time and their resources. The second thing we want them to do, looking at the needs of their district, provide programs. If there's a district-wide need, fine. Do a typewritten ritual. Do a panel on how to actually run a fundraiser responsibly. What do the lodge of the district needs? And giving them the power to actually do that. So then our education committee becomes really a way to collect and clear best practices. DEOs come to us and say, man, we need something to help guys learn how to do ing. So my committee ends up either finding it around the state and making sure that we get those ideas out to the lodges, or we create it. And so our committee becomes much more active. We have met every single month this year. We have issued a boatload of just information to the lodges. Whether it's educational programs, it's white papers, we're trying to get these ideas that exist in a little corner of the state out amongst the rest of the state. We're trying to make sure that that education gets shared. One of the ways that we're doing this is we're doing what's called the Traveling Masonic Education Roadshow. It's a lot like this. Imagine a pop-up educational symposium. A lodge contacts us, says, we kind of want a symposium on living our Masonic values, okay? We scour the state, we find speakers for them, maybe they have local talent, and we hold a day where we go to their lodge and people have their speakers who speak all on one topic. The basis of this is something that we're calling the Traveling Wilburys theory of Masonry. Traveling Wilburys was this band back in the 80s. Basically, George Harrison was writing an album, and I was like, man, I think Roy Orbison's in town. And so they grabbed like all their friends and put them in a studio, and they messed around for like a day, and they created an album. If you get enough cool people in a room, something cool is probably going to happen. Which is sort of the whole thought behind this. The rules that we have, all experiences are centered on one theme. They don't have to be lectures. We have filled boxes with our team of lay boys to send overseas. We have sharpened knives. We've taught euchre. Do you know how amazing, the amazing amount of Shakespeare that can happen over a cribbage board or a deck of guys playing euchre? It's amazing what can happen there. No series goes over 40 minutes. Guys talk. Plenty of times working late, people to talk. Rather than pause for a treat for the last experience. Rules of the day, know your richer titles, listen, question, discuss, connect. Follow the campsite rule, you know, anything's better than when you found them, and we will pause for cookies. On that Doubletree, they stole our wine, but it really came about because the first time we did this, I was there at Lodge, and they had the kitchen underneath. I could smell the cookies. They were cooking underneath. Nobody in that room was listening to me anymore. Right? We got downstairs and we had hot cookies from the oven and ice cold milk. The discussions that happened over cookies and milk, you thought would be absolutely just, you know, like, this is super cheesy. We've held 5 things, we're called 6. Guess what guys talk about? The cookies we had right before the last speaker. So, we've done these particular types of things: sexual place, sacred sexual place, living our values, Masonry of the halls of the lodge. It's amazing. And the attendance really has been anywhere from 30 to 100 people. And it's relatively free form. They come in, there's a list of speakers, we talk, and there's a lot of time within the day for gentlemen just to connect to each other. It's been a really wonderful type of thing, because it is grassroots. The lodges contact us, they have this need, we fill it. I mentioned my good friend Chad Simpson. We actually had a banner made because this whole thing came about because Chad and I were talking online and joking about creating the old snake oil salesman type of thing. Those traveling medicine roadshows. So we actually named it after him. Doc Simpson celebrated the Masonic Education Roadshow. We put that banner up at all of the roadshows. It's kind of fun. Okay. Royal Schofield Society. This is an initiative that we started this year, and it came about. Other jurisdictions have what we call a King Solomon Society, right? An educational honor society. We wanted something a little bit different. A lot of the educational honor societies you see out there might just be online exams that they take, maybe a paper that they write, and that's sort of it. We wanted something different. Similar structure, we offer it through Grandview. Membership is pursued and earned through a combination of requirements that they have to meet. The target that we're looking for is, let's call him Richard. Richard is in a lodge where the guys don't really value education. He wants more, he's asking questions, but nobody can answer his questions. And we also have Sam. Sam's in a lodge where, you know, they do the minutes for 2 minutes, and then they talk about, you know, Thomas Aquinas for 3 hours in lodge. Both of those guys we're targeting. Because one needs to kind of come up and wants to explore what's all possible. The second one, Sam, maybe he's sort of reached that limit of where he can get locally, but he wants to take that next step. He wants to make his ASHA a little bit smoother. Why are we doing this? People join Masonic to connect. They stay when connections are made. And Masonic education is the best way for us to afford to maintain these strong connections. What does it look like? We have 3 structures: Fellows, Pillars, and Masters of the Craft. These are offered through our Grandview. People do pay for them. It's a pay-to-play. So they pay some money, they get access to the first section, pay money, access to the second section, access to the third section. First section is the baseline. Online exams and our 3 degrees. And the goal of this is to establish a baseline. For everybody, Richard's like, I don't know what all this stuff is. Now, he's starting at the exact same place that Sam is. It might take Richard 3 weeks to go through his exams. Sam might do it in 2 hours. Next one, Colors of the Craft. The idea is to explore personal and local connections. Take on sort of a small circle focus. Getting them into their local connections. Ancient charges, reading an exam, a ceremonies, multiple exam. Whence came you? We ask your brother to get into the minutes of his lodge and look for his Masonic history. Give me the dates of your top line signer and then his top line signer. There's going to just Larry, this is Frank Jordan. And I can actually trace that line going way, way back to kind of this button. Or if you can't do top line signers, the masters who raised you. Who raised you? Who raised your master? Or family. Get into the minutes of the lodge. You guys ever actually read the minutes of the night that you were initiated, asked, or raised? Sure. How many brethren actually have? Well, yeah, this is a weird room, right? Travel in friendly lands. Brother has to go to 3 stated meetings or special meetings within his district and write a reflection on his experience. He has to go someplace else. What came he here to do? Using the working tools of training, reference, reflect. What do those mean to you? I'm a middle-aged man. I got a daughter. The 24-inch gauge means something to me now differently than it did when I was in my 20s. Sure. Right? What do these things mean to me? What are the lessons I've actually learned from these working tools, and how do they apply to my life? These things are actually submitted to the education committee, who reviews them, grades them, sends them back with feedback. Once they finish these, then we go to the next one. Masters of the Craft. The idea here is now that he's worked on himself, look at his local connections, now let's broaden this connection. Let's make the circle bigger. Take the small circle to the big circle, there's 7 requirements. Universality. You want the guy to look at either different religion or different code that he is own particular time and tradition, and compare and contrast them. If your background is Islam, go ahead and look at what would be the recommended verses for Hinduism, for Sikhism. Why do they choose those passages for opening and closing the lodge? Oh, look at the codes. Wisconsin's going to be different than Ohio, different than Iowa, different than Kentucky. Some similarities, but what are the differences? Maybe why are they the same? Proving a Masonic knowledge, brother will read a text or proof list according to his personal interest. Do a book report, basically. Read something and basically personal reaction. Travel in foreign lands. Brother must attend 5 Masonic functions outside his district or jurisdiction for him experience. The meetings, the roadshow, Prince Hall, Grand Lodge, get him out of his own little area and reflect on the experience. Masterpiece. A brother has to present in a lodge an original piece of personal and research Masonic work. That can be a paper, but the master of my lodge currently was a master carpenter for 45 years. If you were to ask him to write a paper, he would probably misspell the word paper. But when lodges get reconsecrated in our jurisdiction, they get a carpet and they get candles on the carpet. You know, they have the corn, the wine, and the oil. He built a shadow box for another lodge to hold their carpet and candles. That man talked for an hour about why he selected that wood. Why did he select that wood and that stain? Why did he use those joints? And how it related back to masonry? It was his masterpiece. And he presented it in the lodge. Applied education, brother has to mentor a candidate through the 3 degrees, or serve a year as LEO or DEO. Ritual, brother must give a lecture or the 3 charges from memory in a tiled lodge. And the last one, piece. This came out of a time capsule that my lodge opened in 2013 for our bicentennial. I gotta tell you, I almost tear up every time I see this letter. What an act of faith. What an act of trust. Thinking that the lodge is going to be there 100 years and trusting us to find his descendants and give them this letter. So here's what we ask the brethren to do. Submit a letter that we will hold on to in the Grand Lodge Museum, addressed to your descendants here at your home lodge. 50 years from now, we're going to deliver it to your lodge. The hope is that, ideally, your lodge would open it up and read it. It's a letter 50 years from now. We originally were going to do 100, but we thought, how cool would it be if there's a 20-year-old man sitting here right now, if he writes that letter, there's a 70-year-old man, he's sitting in the lodge, and that letter comes out, and it's read in lodge. And even if he's not there, 50 years from now, someone's going to be in that lodge who knows that guy. Keith? I remember Keith. Let me tell you about Keith. Oh my God, Keith used to sit there. Keith, let me tell you about Keith. But also, as part of this, it's that act of reflecting. That act of throwing your hat over the wall. What's interesting, truthfully, that we found is that guys who write this letter, they have a really vested interest in making sure that their lodge is around 50 years from now. So, they do these things, they do 3 exams, they do 5 things that get them into our code, get them into our ceremonies, get them into the minutes, get them into a district, kind of look at their own reasons of why they're doing certain things. Then they take that outside, look at their connections universally, look at their connection to knowledge outside of what they know. Different districts, they create a personal research work. They mentor somebody else, because education, as you all know, it's amazing what you learn by teaching somebody else. They get into our ritual and they throw their hat over the wall by writing a letter to their future self. Then they can apply to become a member of the Royal Schofield Society. What do they get? Yeah, we do certificates. We're going to invite them to a members-only banquet held at the Table Lodge, held at Grand Lodge Session with a world-class speaker. We're going to probably do a lapel pin, because, kind of a pin. But here's what we're hoping to create, truthfully. We want amateurs, in the sense of that word. They do it out of love. If you look at what we're suggesting, they're not going to become an expert in any one area of Masonic education, and they're going to touch a lot of different areas, a lot of different pieces. And the hope is that, and we have one guy who actually did this, not me, he started looking into his lineage And he's like, well, I got here, where else can I go from here? He's so passionate about finding, well, can I get me back to the Grand Lodge in England? Can I get me back to those guys? We have one guy who, the friend we talked to yesterday, all of a sudden, he's a nurse, and he's looking at Florence Nightingale's, the oath they take. He's looking at the Fellowcraft chart, he's like, linguistically, they're similar there. Well, how did that all happen? He's just going out and calling you. Because he wants to look at when this came into our ritual in Ohio. Was it around the same time? Well, what informed these? So he's become an amateur in that he's embracing education out of love. These connections that we see, in terms of their connections personally, locally, but also with each other. The brethren who choose to pursue this, they're talking to each other. They're traveling together. We're seeing DEOs and LEOs kind of talking to the lodge and say, hey, you just got raised. Why don't we all kind of do this together? Why don't we sort of collectively work on this? Some will do it, some won't. But even just the pursuit isn't necessarily a bad thing. These are the numbers mornings. We actually did a soft open about a month ago. The edict establishing us went out last week. Even from the soft open, 79 have enrolled, 6 have completed it. 5 have completed the first 2 sections. They did those 8 things. 35 have done the first 3 exams. We were hoping for a class this fall, maybe like 10, 15. We may have more. But what we're trying to do with education in Ohio is return sort of that idea of inspiration, of individuality back to the brethren, back to the lodges. Get Masons back to being Masons, and lodges back to being sacred, exceptional places. And the role of us as a Grand Lodge committee is to help them get there by giving them the ideas, resources, and things they need, and possibly like the challenges they need to get there. So, any questions? Sir?
Robert Johnson, Grand Lodge, Illinois. A friend of mine who's
Mike Hambrecht.
Yeah, Mike, he's a good friend of mine. He contacted me to tell me how excited he was about this program. He also, he tried to bend my ear a little bit, and he said, I don't know how to talk to this one fella in my lodge who felt that because there was a fee associated with this particular gentleman felt it was...
elitist?
That's the word he used. Yeah.
He sent me that same email.
Okay, and the response that I guess we would give as like brothers in Grand Lodge people is, well, how can we help that guy afford this or bend the rules for somebody to allow this to happen? And so what is...
My response to that?
What would your response be, and what would your recommendation be? Like if other jurisdictions want to do something similar, how do we handle it?
Well, I can tell you what I told him.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm originally from Wisconsin, and there we have no filter. So I have to give you like the Ohio filter through like my natural Wisconsin desire to like put cheese on it, and so. Masonry, by its very nature, is somewhat elitist. Few are called, many are chosen, what is it? Many are called, few are chosen. Okay. Secondly, dude doesn't have to do this. He doesn't have to. Nowhere are we saying a lodge, brother, you have to pay your $150 to get through this. This is a pursuit. He doesn't have to do this. Now, he doesn't have to pay the $150 all at one time. If this is something that's important to him, he'll do it. If losing weight were really important to me, I wouldn't put cheese on things. Right? But I can't complain, sorry.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir.
I know. What would I tell those brethren?
Inevitably.
Truthfully, I mean, what I said to that guy, the response I gave Mike, first off was that first part of like, again, if it was really important to me, I wouldn't put cheese on it. The second part was, if it's really important to that guy, and it's really a difficulty, talk to your lodge.
Well, he's going to Camp Masonry, so
yeah, I know how much a Camp Masonry is too.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
yeah, that's more.
Third thing is, if it's really a difficulty, It was one of those things he absolutely has to do. Like if he doesn't do our Royal Schofield Society, I don't know, a leg's gonna fall off and his mom's gonna like, you know, disown him. Call me, I'll pay us $30 so we can start. Here. Like if that's really where, if that's the barrier. But if what he really is looking for is a reason to, see, this is where the cheese comes out.
To poop on things?
Remember when you were in junior high and you didn't make the football team and you said, I didn't get on the team because coach doesn't like me? Not that you couldn't catch a ball, not that you like couldn't run 10 yards without falling down. I tried to find a nice way to say that. Like, if you're looking for an excuse to not do it, I can give you many. If you're looking actually for a reason, if you're looking for help doing it, I can also give you that. Choose which path you want. Sorry. So,
one other thing you might add to that is if you get something for nothing, it's worth nothing to you.
and that's exactly why we have
Same way with effort.
$50.
If you don't have to put any effort, it's nothing to you.
Well, and that's what we wanted. We wanted brethren to pay. I mean, people argued $150. 30 for the first, 50 for the second, 70 for the third. I think you understand why we chose those numbers. Yeah, they gotta have skin in the game. Right? And that's important. Again, if it's important to you, you'll won't put cheese on your Lucky Charms. So, okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns? If other jurisdictions are interested in doing this, we're glad to talk to you. We're glad to share some of these things. This is something that happened really kind of because Charlie Murphy and I did a lot of talking. And I hope we should, yes sir.
You have to be in Ohio Mason.
Oh, can you give us a year?
Yeah, sorry. For the record.
For the record.
For the tape. Joshua Thompson, Missouri. I was just wondering if you currently have to be in Ohio Mason to take part.
Currently, we're going to say yes, and we're going to ask you, please give us a year. Because you saw, we just rolled this out a month ago. Let us work out whatever things we might run into. But give us a year, and then let's talk. Because I think, personally, I was surprised by the response. Charlie wasn't. Let's see what happens. We'll give us a year to kind of sort this out. So, is there anything I didn't forget to say, Charlie?
I just want to make one comment. We were talking about the money issue, and it's not going to Preston, or this is not money that's being gathered and used as going into someone's pocket. This money is actually going back to the society. It's helping us to pay for the certificates, for some special seals, for the banquet that we're going to be doing each year. So these fees are being used appropriately, and that's a question that came up. So
yeah, we're not keeping any of it. It really is going. The edict that came from more social Lorraine's, the agreement that Charlie and I had was, yeah, this is not going to be one of those things where I get to buy a Cadillac. This is any of the money that comes in, as much as possible, goes back to the brethren in the experience that they're going to have and what they're going to get for their money. So, and this is phase one. We're talking about what phase two might be, but that's where we are.
And the other thing is that you'd asked about if other jurisdictions can access this. Right now it's Grandview based. I don't know how many, we were on the Maury system, probably many of you are familiar with the Maury system. We transitioned to Grandview from Maury this last year, Grand Lodge of Ohio did. And this particular system is Grandview based. So in order to access it, you do have to go through a Grandview portal, at least the way it's structured right now. But again, a year from now, who knows what's going on. But it's an exciting program we're really excited about. And the response has been really tremendous. And on the way here, we got a call from a guy asking questions about it yesterday on our drive here from Ohio. And Chad said to him, "Why did you do it? What interested you to want to jump into this program?" And he said, "Because I'm looking for something. I feel like I'm a rough ashler, and anything I can do to become more of a perfect ashler will improve me, and it'll improve the way I treat others." So everyone has their personal reason, but it's an exciting program.
It's a nice roadmap for that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Chad, this is Jay Fink from Iowa. As an educator, you, in your presentation, talked about evaluating the papers that your applicants do. And you want me to use my coach's voice? No. Okay, on the record. Is it turned on?
No.
Yeah, I think so.
Flip.
Okay, so Jay Fink from Iowa. And as an educator, I'm just curious, as you talked about in your presentation, the evaluation of the papers or the
Whatever the presentations are.
presentations, right? I just am curious as to who is doing the evaluating, obviously somebody from the committee, and then the steps or the things that you're using to critique their presentations.
If you really want to see the rubrics I wrote, you can. I'm also an educator and have taught for many years. And so in order to make this relatively, for those who don't speak bureaucracy and education needs, I want to give them a rubric so that they can look at certain areas. And things like grammar was, we want to look at the content. That's why we're allowing different methods of presentation. For my master, who really, I think he missed at least one vowel when he spelled paper. My best friend is a guy who has a landscaping business, and just the thought of writing to him makes him nauseated. But he can sit there and talk very passionately about his masterwork. He set up a DMOA chapter in our area. And he says, this is my masterpiece as a Mason. Here's why I did it. Here's my reasons for doing it. Here's how this informs me as a Mason and expresses me as a Mason. And he'll talk for 45, 50 minutes on that. And as we're sitting there with the rubric, we're like, yep, he's kind of, this fits, this fits, this fits. And so we can give the feedback that's specific to that brother. So,
Good, thanks.
and if you really want to see those, I can.
Yeah.
So, anything else, brother? Thank you for allowing me to be here today. Thank you for this opportunity. Here for the questions.